Hello, everybody, and welcome along to the Event Industry News podcast with me, James Dickson. Wishing you all a very good morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever or wherever you tune in to today's podcast from. And just off air prior to today's podcast, I was just talking to our guests today about how I couldn't believe that they had not been on the podcast before. It's one of those people that I see in the industry. I've seen them many, many times at the Event Tech Live event and at the Event Tech Awards. And I just, in my head, I thought they must have been on the podcast at some point in the past. And I was staggered to find out that they hadn't. It was all in my head. So I'm delighted that today we're finally going to be able to talk to this person on the podcast and spend a bit of time, I suppose, getting to know them. Because again, it's somebody that I'm sure many of our podcast followers and listeners will have seen within the industry. I'm delighted to welcome for the first time to the Event Industry News podcast the founder, CEO of Shocklogic, our good friend, John Martinez. John Martinez, thank you very much for joining the podcast and welcome.
Hi, James. How are you doing? Thank you for having me.
Very, very welcome. And as I said, genuinely, I thought you must have been on it. And so I was looking back through sort of old notes that I keep in a folder and on the Event Industry News website, searching for the podcasts that we've done before. And yet I find that you've never been on here.
Sadly not.
So we're first of all correcting what is clearly a mistake on our part to have got this far into them and never spoken to you. How are you, first of all?
I'm good, man. I'm really good. I mean, life is good. I'm one of these lucky people that love what they do, and I can't get up early enough in the morning to go to work. I have the most amazing team, of whom I'm absolutely in love with, and it's just a joy to go to work. And I have it's going to turn a year in a few days. Baby, I have a
Wow.
1-year-old baby, and and that is, if you want something in your life to make you smile every day, God,
Yeah.
he is amazing.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations, first of all. It's great to hear. And it's lovely for you to sort of mention those things about life is good. You enjoy what you do in the workplace, because for anybody who has not come across Shocklogic, you guys, as a brand, have been around since 1997. So that's 25 years this year. And so you're one of the sort of the earliest exponents of event technology as we know it today. And you've been providing event tech platforms for people to host and run virtual events and digital events for many, many years now, well before it became, I suppose, on trend as it has done in the last 3 years. So you've got all that experience to look back on. But more so, you're a really big advocate of wellness and happiness in the workplace. And when I was reading about what we might talk about today on today's podcast, I really loved some insights, some thoughts that that I read on paper about the idea of a work-life balance. And that was something I was wondering if we could kick off today's chat about, because people often talk about a work-life balance. Some people like to have a clear line and in the sand between what they do professionally and what they do outside of their professional life. Your thoughts, I suppose, are slightly different on that, in as much that you very much are an advocate of the fact that for many people, it's just difficult to draw that distinct line in the sand, that invariably their work and their life will cross over at some point. So it's not necessarily striking a balance, but finding ways to embrace life and work at the same time.
The word balance always had, I just read this Forbes report where they say that work-life balance, people were feeling that they were failing constantly, right? So about 90 something percent, it was like in the mid 90s, 90% that people were feeling that they were failing, because of course it's this expectation that you should have 50-50, or but I think I prefer to think about it as work-life harmony, work-life integration. And many times I wonder, if I don't know, a poet, or let's say a rapper. Okay, okay, more of this. A rapper, right, is walking down the beach hand in hand with his or her girlfriend, um, and suddenly, because of the sunset,
Yeah.
uh, get some inspiration, or the cool water in on his toes or on her toes as she walks through the sand, and that gives her inspiration for a song, and she puts out her little book and she writes down a few sentences. Is she walking?
Yeah, yeah, I see what you say, well, this is very much akin to what you were saying about how you enjoy your work.
Yeah.
I feel really lucky to work on events, in a very hands-on capacity, and I enjoy it. It's hard work. There's a lot
Mm.
of preparation. It's mentally and physically exhausting at times, but I really, really enjoy it, and so that is my life.
Yeah. So
And to try and draw a line between the two would be really difficult.
it would be really difficult, and because we are constantly being told that we're not doing this thing well, then we end up with the feeling of, I'm not doing something well, I'm failing at this thing, I'm failing at life, I'm failing at
Mm.
life, or I'm failing at work. Imagine, I mean,
Yeah.
to carry that around, right? So we tend to think more at Shock Logic that we want to create an environment where people want to come to work, right? People um, want to be here. They're here because they want to be here,
Mm.
and it's my job. What I tend to say, as a leader and as a CEO, I am at their service. I work for them. They don't
Mhm.
work for me. It's my job. It's my responsibility. Whenever I lose a member of staff, you have no idea how much it hurts.
Mm.
It freaking hurts me so deeply, because then I feel, okay, I failed at creating the space, at creating the conditions so we align. Of course, like in every single thing in life, and like we're a company. Sometimes we have to let people go. We haven't let somebody go in a long time, I must say.
Mhm. Mhm.
But sometimes we realize that our it might be that our objectives don't align, right? That
Yeah.
we are going in one direction, and this person, for the personal growth, want to go into a different direction. I mean, the number of members of my team that have found their next job is at the vast majority, to be honest, because people stay with us for a long time. The team stays together for a long time. We pay a lot of attention to the team, because I have the belief that myself and my leadership team, we work for them. It is our job to make sure that they are in an environment with tools, with conditions, with resources that make them do the best job they can. And then whenever we all need education, we continue to
Mm.
grow constantly. So how do we put attention to that? So in order to do that, you have to be listening really, really careful. You almost have to be listening to the stuff that people don't say.
Mhm.
There's this personality test called the Big Five, and one of the Big Five is agreeableness. So how agreeableness is the trait, is a personality trait that makes us um, that gauges how much we are liked, how important it is for us. For some people are more agreeable and less agreeable. The more agreeable we are, the more we need validation. Let's say, so that's one
Mhm.
of the
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
that happens there. And so there's an interesting. We Every team member takes his test, is part of the interviewing process, etc., etc. So we want to know who we're dealing with, because we want to be listening to agreeable people. You have to be listening to the request they didn't make,
Yeah.
because they will leave before they express it, right? So you have to be really, really be listening. For me, team is everything.
Yeah.
Without the team, there's no me, there's no it, there's no Shock Logic. I wouldn't be here without Lorena.
Mm.
and her connecting with you, etc., and managing that.
Hmm.
I wouldn't be here without Maggie, who is Lorena's
Absolutely. Yeah.
supervisor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just that very clear. I have, okay, I'm so lucky that I work with my son. Um, that is my joy every day to
Yeah.
work with him and to together make decisions together and get stuck into things and look for solutions and face problems together and see him grow and see him develop and and
Yeah.
grow flowers and so I am absolutely passionate about um, the development of human potential. That is what I get out of bed in the morning for. I mean, and then and I happen to have landed in the events industry. I became enamored and fell in love with people. I come from a background of science. I used to
Yes.
be a quantum physicist.
Yeah. At
um,
MIT, no less, as I understand it. You
yeah, yeah,
studied
so
at
I'm
MIT,
a
so
proper nerd. I'm a proper nerd, yeah.
no, it's fabulous. And if you don't mind me adding into this, is that reading your professional biography, I was very fortunate enough to be sent quite a comprehensive professional biography prior to today's recording. And as I said at the top, I've come across you many times at many events over the last probably 6, 7, 8 years, and never really had the chance to properly talk to you or to understand what your your background is. And just reading about humble beginnings in Caracas in
Mm,
Venezuela, and reading about your mother and the fact that she adopted and fostered many other children, and
yeah,
despite humble beginnings,
yeah.
embraced and promoted the idea of education, work ethic, working hard, make bettering yourself. And just in the first 10 minutes of talking today on the podcast, it strikes me that the way that you're running Shocklogic as an owner and as a managing director, you're running the business in exactly the same way as your mother brought up you and your siblings, if I can draw that conclusion.
Yeah, yeah. I was about maybe 15 years ago. I had the joy, I had the amazing opportunity to meet Simon Sinek,
Mm.
from the book Start with Why. I think I got it right here. And Simon did for me something that he was doing for like Bill Gates and stuff. This was about 12, maybe 15 years ago. And he was just beginning. The book was already out, but it wasn't, it had turned into the phenomenon. So he was doing something called your why discovery. So he would, in a way, discover your why. And we had a conversation for about an hour or two in his hotel room. And there's two things that he said. He said, okay, now I know why you studied quantum physics. I think it says you like to create systems that work, and in order to do that, you have to understand the smallest thing in the universe, right? Which is the particles that make all of us, the nothingness that make the everything that we are. And second is that you are continuing. You have the bug of your mother, and you're continuing and this thing of wanting to improve other people's lives and want to create spaces and teams and communities where people grow. Because
Mm.
I was very lucky. I happen to be the only biological child of my mother, but I have 14 other adopted brothers and sisters and
Wow.
5 fostered brothers and sisters. So we're 20. So I have
Wow.
brothers and sisters of all the colors in the rainbow, some, cappuccino like me, some a little more mocha, some a little more cafe latte, some milky, and some espresso and double espresso. So all the colors in the rainbow. I have brothers and sisters. So I grew up in a home of so diversity has been in my life from the get-go. It's nothing I could do about it, and be exposed to all, because some of them came to live with us when they were already grown up, and some were
Sure.
there before me.
Mm.
Um, So yeah, my mom was the real superstar. I mean, whatever people think about me, now I was nothing. You know, nothing would happen without her and without some of the my mentors. Some people changed my life completely. My professional mentors, mostly women. Um, Venezuela is a very matriarchal society,
Yeah,
and where the mother is the center of everything. But my father died when I was very young, when she was still pregnant of me, and and she never, got a new partner. So I learned to live with the I learned to live with just my mom being the person in charge, and I learned to live with that female influence
sure.
for the rest of my life.
Mm,
So it has been an absolute joy and privilege to um, to have been part of that, and that has been the core of my principles and the way that I see life, and I face life. I had my
mm.
first job when I was 8 years old, um, and yeah. So, but we were all straight A students. That's why sometimes when I hear people say, "Oh no, I'm not," oh, he or she is not very academic, I think.
Yeah,
He,
yeah,
Mom
yeah.
used to say, discipline beats brain any day, right? So I think that discipline is more important than intelligence. If you have discipline, you can do everything. I
Sure.
know brilliant people that never had the discipline to stick to things.
Well, yeah, to study, everybody that's listening to this will know of somebody who they were at school or college or university with who had sometimes I suppose I'm going to draw a football analogy or soccer analogy here with
Go
Messi and
for it.
Ronaldo, and how people always say that Messi is the naturally gifted footballer, and Ronaldo is the person who had a gift but who had the discipline to work and push and push and push and push, and the
Yeah.
discipline to create. And I know that I'm opening up an entire new can of worms by even sort of mentioning the two of those and the debate between them. But I know that it's common thinking among anybody who watches
Yeah.
football is that is the distinction between the two. One is the naturally gifted person, and everyone knows somebody in life, don't they, who has got a natural gift but who maybe hasn't pushed themselves as hard or
Yeah.
been as disciplined as they could have been, and somebody else who maybe is not as naturally gifted but who through sheer determination and hard work has still achieved something far greater than maybe expectation would have predicted. And
Yeah, I think that these two guys they're extraterrestrials, okay?
yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah, yeah.
Messi from his beginnings, doesn't matter how gifted you are. We all seen very gifted, I'm also a football fan.
Yeah.
Football players that disappeared
Yes.
one day, right? And Ronaldo and Messi named players that they thought were better than them
Mm.
when they were little. They said he was more talented than me.
Yeah.
Messi says it very clearly. I wasn't the most talented kid. It's just that I think when you have that resilience, and I call it the capacity for delay gratification, right?
Mm.
So the capacity for delay gratification is something that is a trait that some of us have, many of us have, where our brain automatically says, yes, I'm going to stick to that because there'll be a payoff in the future. And you can build that relationship between the payoff and the effort, right? So going to the gym, if you go to the gym one day, you're not going to see results, right?
Hmm.
If you eat well one day, you're not going to see results. You need to be able to stick to it, right?
Yeah.
And that's a fact, right?
Mm.
The same thing to do with, you got to brush your teeth every day, right? For about 20 minutes, for about 2 minutes, right? 2 to 5 minutes, you're brushing your teeth there. If you don't do that every day, they will end up falling off, right? One way or the other. It's just the way it is. So as we carry ourselves, the habits that we build are going to be pretty much what's going to end up this, so that the end product
Mm.
is going to be directly related to the habits that we build. And you know, I discovered, so I have a scientific brain, right? I'm a proper nerd. I'm a proper nerd that learned how to communicate, and landed in the events industry by sheer coincidence.
Mhm.
Had amazing mentors, and fell in love with the most complex algorithm in the universe. I used to be an algorithm specialist. The most complex algorithm in the universe is the human algorithm, right? And I ended up in Stockholm in the early 80s, at an events management company, at a PCO, professional conference organizing company, creating their technology. So I was a nerdy kid that was doing science. I taught myself how to develop software. I was curious, so I was taking computers apart. I was learning what was doing, and I realized the power of software.
Mhm.
And I wrote this company was called Congrex. They had a software system. I rewrote their system about 3 months or something. I wrote a lot of software. They bring me to Stockholm, and the journey starts. And I fell in love with people. I fell in the events industry. Our raw material is communication, is knowledge. There are three reasons to organize an event. One is to connect people. The
Yeah.
second is to distribute content, knowledge, be music, be a comedy show, be a scientific conference, etc., etc., is to distribute and to deliver content. And the third one is to create experiences. So imagine what a fascinating space. So I fell in love with this industry, and I continue to create technology for this events company for the rest of my career. And
Yeah.
so I realized that just being a developer, I was not going to grow in the direction I wanted to grow. So I asked, can I project manage that project or that project? So they gave me the opportunity. I was so lucky because I was just exposed to a lot of people that put a carrot in front, and allow me to grow, and allow my curiosity to flourish. And now I'm trying. What I'm trying to do now is I'm trying to pay it forward. I'm trying to
Mhm.
create the environments for people to grow, to develop. I mean, my biggest joy is to see the members of my team developing and growing, and how 2 years ago this person couldn't communicate, and he was stuck to the machine, etc., saying things that I hate people, because I work with a lot of techies.
Mm.
And suddenly this individual now presenting to in an open forum, etc., and that's absolutely a joy to watch and to happen. And at the same time, create this thing that provides something of value to a market that are willing to pay for it,
Yeah.
and then with that continue to create more spaces, etc. So
Well, I'm drawing a few, I suppose, questions and thoughts from what you were just saying there, and what has been going in my mind for about the last 5 minutes is the 10,000 hour rule.
mm,
To achieve something and to become good at something is 10,000 hours, and
absolutely.
I thought of the guitar. I picked up a guitar when I was 15. I was I'd been wanting to play it for 5 years. And I remember my mother saying to me, and I'm not buying you a guitar, it's just a phase. It's just a phase that you'll get one, and in 3 months' time, it will be sat in the corner and it will never get played again. I said, no, 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 I want to play, I want to play, I want to play. And eventually, I saved up enough money myself to go and spend my own money to buy one. And I don't think I left my bedroom for 2 years, you know,
That's
every
amazing.
every night after school, in guitar, 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 fall asleep on the bed, wake up with a guitar next to me, have something to eat, guitar, 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 guitar. study at midnight, do homework, and repeat again.
That's amazing.
I was absolutely captivated by it. I loved it, and I still play today. I still play regularly, you know, in the evenings, and it's a passion of mine. I suppose what I'm getting to with this is if somebody, when it comes to work, and going back to what we started talking about today, which is this synergy between work and life that is there nowadays. You said you love your work. If you love something, you're more willing to put those 10,000 hours into it. And I wonder whether or not this is why so many people struggle with their work and they don't like their jobs, is how important it is that this idea that find something that you love, because you'll never work a day in your life.
Yeah, you know, I have a meditation teacher that he says, because I think that's one of the hardest questions that young people can get, right? Where's your passion? And I know young people that either work with us or has worked with us that have said to me, I don't know, you know, I like a lot of stuff. And my meditation teacher tends to say, if you can be with the one you love, love the one you're with, right? And with that, with this, what he means is,
Stephen
if you're
Stills,
not,
I think that was.
yes, if you're not doing something you love, learn to love what you're doing. How would
Mm,
it be? How would it be, curiosity wise, to feel that you love that? And there are
mm.
things that we absolutely don't like and don't love. Um, I must say, when I came into the meetings industry, I didn't know I was going to stay in the meetings industry. And I had no, I came into the meetings industry by sheer coincidence. I was assigned to help them because I knew a lot about the computer that we're using, et cetera, et cetera. They created an opportunity for me in Stockholm. Otherwise, I would be somewhere in a lab, somewhere in a research center, maybe working, or a university teaching, et cetera, et cetera. But then I came into this space, and then I thought, you know, this is fun. Let me see how it goes. Let me put my heart into it. Let me do it the best I can. Not halfways,
Mm.
not so. Oh, I'm gonna be here for a while. I don't know. I'm gonna try. No, you just do it. And I went into it, and the impact that my behavior and my attitude was creating was actually paving the way for me to feel even better about what I was doing.
Hmm.
And I was getting this wonderful feedback, and it was hard. It was hard because, you know, I'm a Latino that was educated in the U.S., and then I end up in Scandinavia, where most people are like this when they're happy, right? That's an expression of happiness. I have a Finnish friend that he is like that all the time,
Yeah,
and he speaks from this place, and this is when he's excited and when he's not excited, etc., etc. So um and I'm in this new culture, and I had to learn how to swim in this new culture. And I'm a Latino, you know, and I continue to be a Latino, and I'm very proud of being a Latino. And I move my hands, I use hyperlatives, you know, I love stuff. I don't go halfways, and and that's the way I choose to live to live life, you know,
yeah,
all in. And and then I end up in Scandinavia, where using hyperlatives makes you not trustworthy, you know,
interesting.
because yeah, you got to be, you have to have your feet on the ground. And for a lot of Northern Europeans, having your feet on the ground means nothing is too great. Things can be quite gray, but nothing
Yeah,
is too great, right?
yeah,
So I had to learn how to, you know, curb my enthusiasm, and communicate from a different place, and that made me fall in love with cultures and cultural differences. This company started to have events all over the world and sending me all over the world, open offices all over the world. So
yeah,
they gave me the opportunity to, you know, to work in Asia, all over Europe, and that was fascinating. And I ended up doing a master's in anthropology when I lived in the Netherlands. So I lived in the Netherlands afterwards. I speak Dutch. So that journey is, all these little bits is what add up to where we are. And I guess is, there's a long road in front. So
That opens up another, I suppose, interesting topic of conversation. And I'm conscious of time, but I've got so stuff that I'd like to ask you,
shoot.
and it's the I suppose the chameleon aspect, or the chameleon style nature that certain industries adopt, and I think the events industry is certainly an exponent of that, in terms of it's like people who work in hospitality, and I'm going to draw my own personal sort of reference on this again, John, and that is that when I was 16, I got a job, my first job as a teenager, on a Saturday, and I worked in a men's tailors, uh,
Wow.
and it was a really sort of highbrow, well-to-do gentleman's clothes shop in Windsor, and uh, it wasn't very busy. We never had more than 2, maybe 3 customers in the shop at any one point, even on a busy Saturday. But it was very much, you could have somebody coming in who had made their money by selling fruit and vegetables. They'd started as a greengrocer, and they were very working class, salt of the earth, and they would come in and they would be loud and proud, and it would be a certain type of conversation that you had to have with them in order to engage with that person. The next person would come in and they might be a very, very straight, person who's working in the banking industry or finance. Um, it could be somebody who was a peer, who was from a very sort of upper class background, and they would be a lot more reserved and more formal in their language. And one thing that taught me in a very short space of time is how to adapt, not to be a different person, and not to sort of be a two-faced person, but how to adapt your own
Yeah.
personalities very, very quickly, to adapt to your environment in order to be able to work with those people in that environment in a way that they felt comfortable. And I think that that's something that ultimately is a life lesson, as translated through all the jobs I've had, and particularly in the events industry, because you could be working on an event one day with a certain type of clientele and audience from a
Yeah.
certain industry background. Last week I was working with people who work in the care home industry. They were care home managers, and I was running a conference for care home managers. In a couple of weeks' time, I'll be in London for Event Tech Live. I'll be with Event Tech people who, they're a completely different audience, and I do find
Absolutely.
myself adapting to
Absolutely.
speak to them. And I
But
just
but
thought
that
I'd throw
is
that in there and see what you think of that as
but
a.
that's what's fascinating about the events industry. An event can be so many things, right? So you got event, it's this umbrella term to
Mm,
identify everything from a wedding, from a concert, from my high school reunion to a scientific conference or the World Economic Forum in Davos.
mm,
All of that is defined as an event, and the skill set that you need to each one of them is very different.
yeah,
It's not the same thing organizing a banquet that is organizing a conference. It's not the same thing. You don't use the same. It's very different to organize a scientific conference that is to organize a corporate event, for example. And that is something that is not understood completely. Sometimes when I'm talking to other event tech people that comes just from the tech side and haven't had a background in event management. So I realized the gaps. And I was so lucky to end up working, for 14 years. I was an event organizer. I was designing technology for an event management company. And every day, my approach to the event was, how do I solve my organizers problem? First my in-house organizers, and
mm,
then and now organizers out there in the world. How no, so we are absolutely passionate about simplifying the life of event organizers. That's what we want to do every day.
yeah,
That's what we want to. So every piece of every service, every function, every piece of technology, every platform, every software that we design, we're constantly thinking, how do we simplify their lives? And then how do we make them make money? Because I'm very clear with the fact that if I make my client make money, they can pay me without problem. right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's an equation that doesn't fail, right? So if we make them make
You
money,
don't need
then
to know quantum physics to know that. Yeah.
exactly. It's like when my we were looking for an accounting company, and so this person who is still our accountant is very the accounting firm. They're very good, and he said to me, "I said, so what are you looking for?" I said, "I'm looking for you to pay your own salaries. You know,
Mm,
I'm looking for you to save me enough money or show me the way how your cost will not be a burden." So you see, because at Shocklogic was so we pay so much attention to this work-life harmony or work-life integration. I mean, we do really out there stuff. Like I discovered meditation about 15 years ago, and I discovered mindfulness, and I meditate every day. It's part of my habit. It's part of what I do every day. It's how I live life. It's part of my sanity. And at Shocklogic, we embrace mindfulness and we do breathing exercises every day, every single day. Every meeting starts, every daily meeting starts with a 3-minute mindfulness breathing exercise. We have something called Scrum. I don't know if Scrum is a term that comes from a management technology called Agile that a lot of tech companies will be
mhm,
familiar with. And our weekly Scrum, we have one general Scrum where all 70 of us worldwide meet online. And in that meeting, at the end, we do a 10 minutes mindfulness breathing exercise, all of us together. And I can see how through time this has changed lives because it only came to my life 15 years ago. I wish somebody would introduce me when I was in my 20s. I wish that somebody would have said to me, there's a way to quiet the chat box. There's a
mm.
way that I can slow down my brain. One of my colleagues, Pritesh, he tends to say, slow, smooth is fast. If you're looking
Yeah, I've
for
heard that. I've
performance,
heard that. Yeah, yeah.
if you're looking for performance and you're looking for effectiveness, because we're constantly in the pursuit of effectiveness, right? We want to do more with the time that we got. And then we have this pressure. And then that's why, we tend to then steal time, what was supposed to be our our life, because work life, right? Our life was supposed to be stealing time from there. And what's in clear for me is that solutions, which is what I call creativity, that for me the term creativity is not so much am I able to paint a beautiful landscape. For me, creativity is the capacity that we have to come up with the solutions to problems, right?
Mm.
So that thing that goes, aha, that's the way I'm going to solve that problem. Oh, this person will help me, or I'm going to change the spreadsheet in that way. That for me is creativity. It comes from the gap between my thoughts, not from thinking. You see, so when I was solving algorithms, when I was being trained as a scientist, and I trained myself as a professional, and I was being coached by my mentors, it was always think harder, put your head down, get the work done, because that is what we did at home, right? I've been working since I'm 8 years old. I didn't know, so I didn't believe that by sitting and doing nothing, I was doing something.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that in order to get from A to B, I could go either straight or I could go bouncing against the wall, which is what my brain was doing. And it was taking me longer. I was only doing that, okay? I was concentrated in the job, but it was taking me much longer because my brain wasn't in the shape, on the position to be able to do it. And what we have done at Shocklogic is that we, for example, another thing that we do for our live work, integration and harmony, is that we have two um, counselors, coaches that happen to be psychotherapists who are with a core part of the team, and they see all of us. They see me and Johnny as a couple. They see all of my colleagues, and yes, we want them to bring the personal problems to them. I don't have the skill set. That's something I realized very early in my career. As a leader, I don't have the skill set to deal with some of the issues that some of my colleagues are facing. If
Hmm.
somebody is facing a cancer scare, if somebody has a problem at home, if somebody is in a relationship that is breaking down, they won't be productive. Doesn't matter how much we shout at them. It's like shouting at a quadriplegic, walk. There's nothing they can do about it. So why not embrace
Yeah,
that
yeah,
with compassion and kindness and understand that if I want this individual to be as productive as I can, let's say I'm ruthless, right? I'm only thinking about bottom line. I'm only thinking about money. Man, it makes such good sense. It makes such good business sense to take care of your people.
yeah,
It just
yeah.
ridiculously intuitive
Well,
to take care of your.
like many people, I have, and I of course won't name them, but I've got examples of places that I've worked at in previous years, and companies who I still know who are operating who have the complete opposite approach. It's about finding the cheapest way to do something. You know,
Yeah,
they have disgruntled staff who are not happy because decisions have been made, and ultimately those decisions are about saving money to because they think that by saving money in certain areas as a business they will make more money, and it's 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 antiquated thinking now. Because of
yeah.
how we understand emotion, the human brain, because of how industry and business works in the modern age.
And it's
Once you
much more
have an
expensive.
understanding of how it works now, you can't work in a manner that was relevant 40 years ago because it has no
Yeah, and it's
relevance
so
now.
much more expensive to replace people. It's
Mm,
so much more expensive. It's so much more resource hungry. It is extremely expensive when
mm,
you train somebody and then you don't create the right space and people leave. We believe, I mean, one of our values is be kinder than necessary because everyone you come across is fighting his own battle,
yeah,
right? So we want to put ourselves in the shoes of our customers. First of all, we want to put ourselves in the shoes of the other members of our team. Team first. So a lot of companies out there say we are customer oriented. And I tend to say to our customers, we love you, but I love my team more.
yeah,
And because without them and our partners and our suppliers, we cannot provide you with a fantastic service and support that we provide you with.
mm,
There's
mm,
no chance. So I am going to make sure that we put an oxygen mask first, like in the plane. Um, you put your oxygen mask before you have your children. It is anyone with children, that sounds crazy, but the truth is, if you faint or you die, then your children die. You
mm,
have to be in good shape to do it. And that's why we take such good care of the life bit in the
yeah,
life work harmony.
yeah,
And we because we absolutely believe, listen, there's nothing that we can do about the fact that we all have the same brain. Okay, some people are more intelligent in some things than others. Because I tell you, there are documentaries about the things that Einstein wasn't great about. Okay, and so some people are great at some things, some people are great at others. What happens is that if we are on the state of fear, right? Our brains, our bodies are designed to react for about 90 seconds, for about 90 seconds. So a minute and a little bit to a
mm,
heightened state. You can take it up to 4 minutes.
hmm,
It's almost like the boundary, right? So because we needed to survive, right? We need to
yeah,
survive as a species, right? We're not very strong. We don't have a strong skin
hmm,
protecting us. We don't have big claws. We have big teeth in order to be predators in a way that a bear, a tiger, a
yeah, yeah,
lion would be, right? So we needed to survive. So how do we survive? We survive by being scaredy cats, right? We hear a stimulus, and the oldest piece of our brain, which is there's a gland there called the amygdala. Our reptilian brain has three functions: fight, flight, freeze. Nothing else. That's all. Our whole body is designed to fight, flight, freeze, right? And we have this body, we have this brain. There's nothing we can do about it, right? And we're living in today's world. There are no tigers walking around the street. There are no bears anymore, but we have the same system. And then we have two nervous systems in our body. We have our sympathetic system, which is the one that has kept us alive for all these million years, okay? So it's kept us alive because it's alert. It's all the time looking. I mean, we are we are a predator, but we're more a prey than a predator. So we have this heightened sense. We align with species that are looking around and are careful, right? Because we don't even run very fast. We only have two legs, right? So there's another system that through the millennia was developing us, which is called our parasympathetic system. The parasympathetic system is the one that says you are okay. It goes on when you relax.
Right.
What happened with our brain? The amygdala secretes a hormone called cortisol. Cortisol is designed to stop your frontal lobe from thinking. So the frontal lobe is where speech, calculations, data, facts come from. It's all the thinking happens here. All the feeling happens here. The balancing happens back here. But all the feeling happens here, all the thinking here. So the it shoots cortisol to our frontal lobe, designed to make us not think, to make us act. And that's why road rage, something happens, you react. I reacted in a way that later on I go, oh my God, I wasn't thinking. You
Yeah.
put all of us in danger.
Yeah.
And then really you weren't thinking. You were not supposed to think because your body, your brain, because there are no bears around, is selecting these situations and it reacts the same way it would have reacted if there was a bear. So it goes into panic mode. Either you confront, you run away, or you ignore. You pretend that it never happened. And and this is the workspace now. This is our
Yeah.
relationships. And we need to deal with all of these issues in the same way. We can't go through life, attacking, running, or playing dead. There has to be a middle place, right? And that
Well,
middle
of course,
place is
because we avoid the crash as well, don't we? If you think about those short 90-second periods, they're accompanied,
exactly.
I would presume, with the rush of adrenaline, and so you have this sudden surge and peak, and then of course that's always followed by the subsequent crash and the trough,
Oof,
and of course
absolutely.
which is what everybody who works in events says that they've experienced at times. They get faced with a
Yes.
situation during the build, oh, panic, deal with it, and then suddenly they find themselves
Yeah,
back in
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and to function correctly, you have to try and maintain, I suppose, a bit more of an even line.
And even more than even line. And then, so what happens is that breathing, when we breathe in a certain way, if we breathe, okay, that means I am running, I am most probably running from something or towards something, right? So my brain will recognize that heart rate and that breathing pattern, and it will secrete certain things in order to allow me to be better at that for a period of time.
And
If we
yeah,
if we breathe slowly, deep, and then we exhale slowly, long and slow, we turn on our parasympathetic system. We tell our bodies, I am okay. Blood flows to the frontal lobe. We can think again and we can make better decisions. So keeping our teams scared is keeping them dumb.
mm.
Like I remember how many times my mom, she had to deal with 20, okay? She would look at me and say, tell me why. John, tell me why. And I'm thinking, and I would be frozen, absolutely
Mm.
frozen. I couldn't even talk, because I was very scared at the moment, right? And then so I couldn't think. And later on, then I could maybe explain the situation. And we all have found ourselves there. So it's all physiology. It's all, you see, all of this stuff is going in our body. It's like an iceberg. The
Mm.
only bits that we see outside of the water are the results and the behavior. But all the stuff underneath is happening inside of our body. And our physiology creates emotions. Emotions create feelings. Feelings create thoughts. Thoughts create actions. And that is the only thing that people see, how we act, how we behave, how we, but it's all based down here. So you can get somebody really grumpy and you're thinking, oh my God, that person, don't you like your job? And then actually it's low in sugar. And this person hasn't realized. And because you're
Yeah.
low in sugar, you're feeling under the weather constantly. And
You just reminded me of something as well that I was again, is just a recent experience that I'm drawing on, where a friend of mine was telling me about another friend of theirs, and they'd gone for a job and they didn't get the job, and in the feedback they were told, you were the most qualified for this job, but you didn't interview very well. Now, the point I'm going to draw here from what, as I'm learning and listening to you today, John, is this thing of fight, flight, or freeze. Okay. If somebody is presented with a situation, everybody's been called into the meeting with their boss at some point, and they go in and they kind of sit there and they think, oh, am I in
yeah,
trouble? What am I going to do? Now, in a similar way, in an interview situation, if you walk into an interview and you're faced
that's it.
with an environment that's not making you feel comfortable, that's not making you feel welcome, that's not making you feel like you can express yourself honestly, then your brain is going into the freeze, and they're not going to interview well.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
having listened to what you've said today, and just drawing on that recent conversation that I had, that to me is grossly unfair on that person who's been interviewed. That to me, I think that the people who have conducted the interview need to answer the questions, really, because they've not created an environment that's allowed that person to come in and feel relaxed. They've created an environment where their instinct has kicked in and they've frozen.
Of course, but remember, when you are in the interview, the interviewer wants to put that person under pressure because they want to know, would this person carry the job in the right way when they are under pressure? So
Yeah.
it's
Okay.
each one of
Okay.
our responsibilities to make sure that we know how to deal with this. So if I could have talked to your friend before, I would have said, sit outside, breathe 5 times, in deep, count to 5, exhale long and slow. Do it 5 times. That shoots your parasympathetic system. Your heart rate goes down. You start to speak from a different place. You seem more together, not so nasal, not up here. I'm a little bit anxious. I'm talking to you. This is going to be seen by a lot of people. Yeah. So that anxiety is coming through in the way that I'm talking. I'm also
Yeah.
passionate about what I'm saying, so that also raises my levels of adrenaline.
Mm.
So if he was able to go in from a more calm place, then he would be able to do that. And at least he has a better chance of dealing with his own
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
emotions,
Yeah.
feelings, thoughts, actions, right? And it's all physiology, it's all inside of us. So a lot of people see mindfulness as a hocus pocusy, or the universe is coming. Aside of all of that, and everyone can take it as a spiritual journey, or in many different ways. All of that is valid. There is a physiological thing going on, which is beyond all the thinking, has to do with our bodies, with how we treat our brains. Did he sleep well the night before? What kind of, did he drink a Red Bull before going in because he wanted to be sharp, on edge? Do you know what I mean? That kind
Yeah.
of stuff, that kind of stuff. And also has to do with who was the person the interviewer looking for. The interviewer might have been looking for somebody that was calm because it was a position where this person might have to coordinate others. And he's
Yeah.
thinking, oh, this person is a little bit on edge. He's looking at, it's like, yeah, I'm paying attention to you. Yeah, I'm here. You know, and we're all being with people like that. And sometimes when I see them, I go, oh, I wish I wish we could talk a little bit and say, no, slow down. Ground is. But of course, if you said somebody slow down, the heart rate goes even faster, right?
Yeah.
Uh, so,
Yeah. Yeah.
so, so what we try to do with mindfulness in the team is to put them in the position to embrace and to practice and to create, to at least put them in a space where they can create habits that will allow them to operate in the best possible way. So you get somebody in the business development team and is going to have a meeting with a client, and he's trying to do his best and he's nervous. And then the moment that if he is not able to regulate, then when he goes or she goes into this meeting, she will not represent herself in the best way. You
Mm.
see, before I came to talk to you, I sat, I sat outside. I had a glass of water with 85% water, right? I put more water in my body to be together. It's physics. It's just physics. I did 5 breaths. When I came to you, I was calm. I felt because I want anyone that watches this to, I want to represent myself in the best possible way, right? In this
Sure.
conversation. And that doesn't happen out of magic, that this doesn't happen out of the blue. um, we all need to learn and train and develop, et cetera, et cetera. So what that's why we're doing some of these things in the company. And for me it's very interesting because until a few years ago I had never heard the word wellness, but we were already doing these things. And we really take care of our people. If somebody's ill, if a family member's ill, you're off, man. Take the
Mm.
time. Family first.
Yeah.
Nothing is more important than family, right? And so I'm also lucky enough that as I am Latin American, I speak Spanish, and we have a big presence in Latin America and in my home country, Venezuela, that is in a very, very bad shape at the moment. And I'm trying to give back because, listen, I only got to the US. I got a scholarship to study in a boarding military school, a very prestigious,
Mm.
top 10 boarding military school. That wouldn't have happened if somebody wouldn't have given me the opportunity with a scholarship, right? So, how can I live my life and not create opportunities for others? How?
Sure.
Who am I
Mm.
if I don't constantly? Because I came from a shanty town in a shack with dirt floor, with a mother that if she would have raised me by herself, maybe would have had a better chance. But when we're 20, there's a lot of mouth to feed, man. There's a lot of mouth to feed. I don't even want to imagine the stress that she must have been under because
Yeah.
we were so poor, And
Yeah.
so all my brothers and sisters were working and studying. We all went to university. We all, I mean, I am not an overachiever in my home. I am not. I am. I have brothers and sisters who are very successful. Um, so who am I if I don't live life in a way that I'm just in a permanent state of gratitude?
Yeah.
Bloody hell, you know how difficult, how unlikely it is that the boy that was born in Caracas and raised in the shanty town is here talking to you today. It's just,
Mm.
it's just,
Well, it's enlightening, is what it is. It's enlightening and inspiring, and I think I said at the start of today's podcast, John, that it would be great, finally to have sort of 25, 30 minutes to talk to you. And uh, I've only just looked at the clock, which always says to me a couple of things. Number one, I've been really engaged in what the person is saying because I don't look at the clock. Uh, and it also means that I think it's important when somebody is speaking as eloquently and as insightfully that you afford them the time to do that. We're under huge time pressure always in life at the moment, aren't we? We've got a meeting, we've got the next meeting, we've got a Zoom, we've got a Teams, we've got
exactly.
this, that, and the other. I've got to go here, I've got to go there. This is the deadline, this is the thing. But sometimes I think it's really important to just say, you just have to go with it. You just,
Yeah.
it's sometimes really nice to just sort of break out from that structure sometimes. And
Yeah.
in this
Stop.
particular
Stop for a
example,
moment.
yeah,
It's going to be best for everybody. It's going to be best for you, for your partner, for your children, for your colleagues, for your clients, for your supplier. It's going to be all around. We call it 360 degrees of care. And
Mm,
all 360 degrees is better for everybody when you stop. And what I
mm,
tend to say to the members of the team when we're having our breathing exercises, because I know, because this is happening online, many of them would be doing something else. So no, I mean, 10 minutes in a breathing exercise, I have to send these 2 emails. I tend to say to them, the company wants to pay you to do nothing. We want you to we want to pay you for you to stop. You don't want to do the breathing exercise because you're rebelling and this is not my thing. It's like it's not your thing to have a brain and to have hormones and neuroreceptors. It's just nothing that you can do. You have the same body as everybody else. It's
Mm,
what we do with it what is important. So okay, I would say, okay, if you're rebelling against the because sometimes the young ones at the beginning, you get the eye rolling and the whole thing. And you say mindfulness, so I tend to say to them, then don't do anything, just stop.
yeah.
And why not take a pencil or a pen and a piece of paper and write down what's going on with you right now. Dedicate this 10 minutes to you. These are for you, for nobody else, for you only. And I'm hoping that with these kind of things, we can avoid burnout. We can
Hmm.
avoid, you know, people being under undue stress because event management is categorized as the fifth most stressful job
Absolutely. Yeah, we've
out
spoken
there.
about that before on here. Yeah,
So
yeah.
we need to have the tools in order to decompress, to regulate, to know how to stop, to
Hmm.
know how to switch off. And if we can build these habits in a daily basis, and there are a number of techniques, there are other things out there. We happen to use mindfulness. Other people who use other things. I have many friends that use different things. Um, yeah,
John, I first of all can't thank you enough for your time today, but also for what you've said on here. It's been genuinely fascinating to listen to you, and I've come away from this hour or so that we've been talking, um, having learned something, which I think you can never undervalue. I've learned things. You've said stuff today
brilliant.
that has connected dots in my own head, and to sort of go back to the physics that we talked. Everything is connected.
Everything.
We are all connected. Everything is connected. The
Yeah,
teams we work with, the people that we interact with, we are all connected in some way. And the stronger those connections are, and the better those connections, and the more we learn from those connections, the better we could be. And I suppose I can't offer any better compliment, I think, than saying to you that I've learned something today.
thank
And
you.
I feel
That's
like
great.
certain dots in
Um,
my own head have been joined together by some of the stuff that you've spoken about. And
mm,
I would offer that people listening to this today are no doubt feeling the same thing. And whenever you listen to this podcast today, we're recording it on the 4th of November 2022. You may listen to this in 6 months time, a year's time, in a couple of weeks time, when it is published. Whenever you listen to this podcast, please do just take maybe a couple of minutes afterwards and tweet at Event News Blog, or tweet at Shocklogic, I think it is,
yeah,
and
that's
let us
shock
know
logic.
what you've got out of listening to John today, because I'd love to get some feedback and some comments from people who've listened to the podcast today, John, and I'd love to know what their own you know input is. Maybe they've got something that they would like to add to the conversation that you and I have had today, and maybe
Brilliant.
that they themselves can share what they have learned out the back of it. We'd love to get some comments, so please do tweet at Event News Blog and at Shocklogic, and let us know what you thought of today's podcast. And we should say, not just at Shocklogic, John, but if people want to find out more about Shocklogic themselves, shocklogic.com is your website, isn't there? Loads of
Yeah,
loads of information on there, to find out what you do as a company, what you do as a team, some of the projects and the people that you work with. And also great that there are great blogs and news stories on there that are not just about what you're doing as a business, but that there are mindfulness and wellness blogs and articles
yeah.
on there that you've published.
Yeah, and my personal email address is john@shocklogic.com. I'm always looking for, a constant search of members of my team. So if anybody is curious, write to me, john@shocklogic.com. Um, and we really believe that is the whole human being is important. I mean, that thing is that you need to be a professional and a person, and never being able to be that. So how can I request that of anybody else? I was never able to leave my emotions at the door, come in like a robot, right, into the office and operate. And then the moment I step out of the office, put again my human being hat and behave like a human. I'm sorry if I have a heartbreak. I am going to carry that into my job and I won't be able to produce anything. I'm going to sit behind the computer. I'm going to pretend to be working because that's what I'm requested of. I'm going to be miserable in there,
Mm,
but then I won't be able to be as productive as you need me to. Maybe if you give me the time off, if I'm able to switch off and then come back and be totally here and
mhm.
then build a relationship where I feel that my team takes such good care of me, man. Really. And I realize that I want to take care of them. And then when you do that, man, magic happens. One plus one is five. You
Mhm.
really do wonderful stuff when that exists. And when we are so in a state of fear, in a fear-based mentality, looking for the bottom line constantly.
Mm.
I mean, listen, we also believe in radical ownership, right? We are really clear at telling, sorry, my bad. And
Yeah.
another of our values is be unstoppable. No ifs, no buts. Another of our values is don't let what you cannot do get in the way of what you can do, right?
Mm.
So all of that exists. Yes, there's a lot of brain stuff there, but it's a lot of heart stuff because we are a mix of this whole thing.
Yeah.
And
You've
and
you,
and
you've found unknowingly perhaps a way for me to round off today's podcast, John, because you've reminded me of Bruce Springsteen and his Springsteen on Broadway show that he did, where he spoke about his life and he played songs relevant to stories that he was telling about his life, and he spoke about the the putting together of his famous E Street Band, and when he first met those musicians in New Jersey. And in the show he talks about in normal life 1 + 1 = 2, but when you find those people that you connect with and suddenly they started making music together and magic was happening, he said that's when he said 1 + 1 = 5. And he said exactly what you've just said there, that it's when, you know, maths goes out the window a little bit, and you get the right people together in the right space in the right environment, and suddenly all the laws as we know them go out the window a little bit. And I think everybody can maybe reference that at some point in their lives, and I think it's a nice way to round off today's podcast.
great, great. Thank you very much, James.
No
Thank you for
problem.
your time.
Just a little bit of housekeeping before we say goodbye today. We're recording this on the 4th of November, so we are just 2 weeks away from Event Tech Live 2022, moving to its new home at XL London. It's quite possible that when this particular episode of the podcast drops, that event will have taken place. So I will say good luck, but also well done, depending, John, because Shocklogic will be there. They're going to be
That
right by
will
the
be.
main entrance. So again, if this drops before that, they're going to be right by the entrance as you walk into the show. If you're listening to this afterwards, we hope you had a great show, guys. And anybody listening to this that came along to the show, we hope you learned, that you benefited, that you made new connections, and that you had a great time at the show. And of course, on the podcast front, there are loads more episodes to listen to. If you're listening to this today via your podcast platform, head over to eventindustrynews.com, where you can find news features, special supplements on the website, the A to Z supplier directory, as well of course as video versions of all of our podcasts. If you are already there watching this on the eventindustrynews.com website, thank you very much for tuning in, and don't forget to go in the opposite direction. And if you want to listen to audio versions of our podcasts, you can do so via wherever you get your podcast from. Just go to one of the well-known podcast platforms, search for the Event Industry News podcast, and you will find us on there. And thank you very much for listening, everybody. It's been a longer episode today than normal, but one that I think everybody would agree is totally worthwhile and worth that extra stretch. John, thank you very much again, Mr. John Martinez, the CEO and founder of Shocklogic, for joining us today. And we'll see you on the next edition of the Event Industry News podcast, everybody. Goodbye.
See you soon.